Sup, freaks? Welcome back to Rabbit Hole Recap. Another big week, Matt. None of us are drinking.
Yeah.
Neither of us are drinking.
Huge week. I have a White Claw on the side. I'm currently drinking a cold nitro cold brew, and then I'm gonna open the White Claw.
Yeah, we need to pick up these vibes.
Just to clarify for the freaks, you didn't break your sober October for the Leo episode. It was the last. It was probably what pushed you over the edge to say you're gonna do a sober October, right?
It was the last recording before sober October.
Yeah.
But like George Washington, I cannot tell a lie. I've not been completely sober this October. I've been sober sober for most of October.
It's the 8th.
It had a big family gathering last Saturday.
Wow.
Wow.
Last time we take Marty at face value, freaks.
Hey.
Noted.
I just fessed up, It would be terrible if I sat here and said otherwise,
We appreciate the disclosure, Marty. The transparency is appreciated.
Hey, you know what? You got to be the change you want to see in the world. I cannot tell a lie. Big week. Should we start the dashboard and just get into things? Obviously, people are excited about.
Let's just jump into things. This is one of those weird weeks where I'm like extra bullish and extra bearish at the same time.
Yeah, a lot
of gray hair is being formed on my head.
A lot of mixed feelings this week. A lot of big announcements from publicly traded companies, from regulators, Department of Justice. Let's get into it. We're going to start at Clark Moody's dashboard, where the price of Bitcoin right now at 3:24 p.m. Eastern is $10,882. A dollar is going to get you 9,189 sats. The Bitcoin market capitalization is $201.4 billion. We're currently at block 651,854. The next difficulty retarget is in 1,330 blocks. It is estimated to be 2% upward difficulty adjustment, and blocks are coming in at roughly 9 minutes and 48 seconds. There was a difficulty adjustment since we last met. It was a downward difficulty adjustment of 0.1%, so nothing too crazy there. But the block time difference was 9:51. That's interesting. Blocks are coming in under 10 minutes per block, yet there was a downward adjustment. Right now there are 35,239 transactions in the Mempool. Still got...
Because it's just barely under 10.
Yes. We have the ability to send 1 sat per byte transactions if you're willing to wait a week. If you're trying to get your...
The last time.
If you have a time preference that only lasts a day, you can get a transaction through at 3 sats per byte. If you need to get it in an hour, it's 106 sats per byte. And if you need it next block, you might want to set your transactions with a 112 sat per byte fee.
The hard part with the fees is like the middle ground, Like I clearly know when it's like I can either wait and it's a self transfer, right? And it's like 1 sat per byte, or like it's to someone right? And it could be like a 1 sat per byte that can take whenever it goes through, it's fine. Or it's ASAP, right? Like who's the guy who's like, I'm willing to wait like 8 to 16 hours. Like who is that dude? Like what transaction is that transaction?
Yeah, and the game theory works out too. Like how much do you factor in potential increased congestion within that time period?
Yeah, it's like Asia wakes up. You're like, I can wait 7 hours. Then Asia wakes up and it's like 14 hours instead.
Yeah. That's why, hey, make it RBF right now. According to Clark's dashboard, 12.3% of the transactions in the mempool are using RBF. Whirlpool, I mean, you don't even have this on the list, but we got to bring it up. Whirlpool liquidity right now is 1,645.99 Bitcoin. The cycles the last 30 days are 9,260.
Wait, what is the liquidity at?
1,600, basically 46 Bitcoin.
Yeah, okay. What do we have to bring up?
Just like the flame wars. They were heating up this week.
Everyone's a hypocrite.
Yeah, but like the flame wars, again, I recommend to anybody working on these technologies. I know you have your critiques, your doubts, your beef with warring factions and the CoinJoin wars, but I do think the flame wars do a disservice to the concept of coin joining at large, because it truly does confuse a lot of people, like what works, what doesn't.
Think I will be definitive here and say that I think the way Samurai Wallet acts in social media detracts from the whole educational effort tremendously. That's extremely frustrating. I'd also say that the white knights that are anti-samurai, are not innocent here. They're fucking obsessed with attacking samurai every day. They come out and it's something else, So, it is what it is. Eric Wall said something interesting, which I probably am not clear enough all the time, but that UX is almost as important as the underlying privacy tech, because you need it to be easy enough that we have a large enough people to use it, because otherwise you have no privacy, which is one of the reasons. What?
I was going to say, before you get into this diatribe, maybe we should just read the first shout out, because we have a shout out that.
But that's different. Before we get to that shout out.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why I like the Samurai stack so much. Some people said that I'm not critical enough of Samurai. My biggest issue with Samurai is, besides the way they act on social media, which is, they have deference. I don't need to tell people that they see it. Is the actual wallet code. But they're working on making that cleaner. That is one of the reasons why it's still a beta product. It's one of the reasons why they haven't prioritized making it a reproducible build, because they're refactoring so much in the code base, that they're changing so much in the code base, that it would just be a constant effort. So that's my biggest criticism there. As far as the actual implementation, the Whirlpool implementation, the CoinJoin implementation, I think is fucking fantastic. I think if Wasabi actually wanted to improve their situation for their users, they would fork Whirlpool, and they would run the Whirlpool implementation within the Wasabi code base, the wallet code base, with their neutrino and everything else. They won't do that for ego reasons. The best case scenario would be if they shared that liquidity pool, which is one of the reasons why I'm working with Hexa to get Whirlpool into Hexa wallet, and where they share that liquidity pool, that unspent capacity pool. And then last but not least, like if to go back to the UX thing, that's the problem with Join Market, right? The problem with Join Market is the UX is just not there. And if the UX isn't there, we're not going to get enough users to use it. So anyone to the people that want to recommend Join Market to the new users, by all means do that. But you should answer the support requests.
Yeah, so much nuance goes into all of it, and it does get confusing. Like the accusation that Samurai team is a bunch of CIA spooks scares a bunch of people too.
They both say it.
I know. I don't think
the
either
Samurai
of them are.
guys say Wasabi spooks, and then the anti-Samurai people, who, by the way, mostly don't recommend Wasabi anymore. They just do shallow recommendations of Join Market, and most of them probably don't even fucking use Join Market. Say that the Samurai guys are spooks, and they both say that the other one, that they're innocent of the fucking shit.
Yeah,
they're all fucking full of shit, man.
Yeah, so we're here to say, hey, the Flame Wars has objective outside. I think I'm more of an outside observer. I know that you get in the middle of the Flame Wars sometimes in back channels. I think I'm more of an outside objective observer. I don't think the Flame Wars are beneficial to the goals of both implementations. So I don't know. This is not that I don't think you guys are going to take my advice, but it's unsolicited advice to cool down the flame wars. Throw some water on the flame wars. Just put your head down, do your work, present your work, and let it speak for itself.
On a positive note, our boy Bitcoin Q&A released bitcoinprivacy.guide this week, which is just a really great place to just ignore the noise and go through Bitcoin privacy tools. I just think it's a very user-friendly, intro to that world. So I think everyone should check that out. At least learn, just learn about it, read about it, do your own research. Ideally, play around with it. But even if you don't play around with it,
read up
on
it.
Get educated on it.
Yeah. So it's 8 pages: sourcing your Bitcoin, securing your Bitcoin, segregating your Bitcoin, scrutinizing your Bitcoin transactions, separating your Bitcoin from its past, safeguarding your Bitcoin, spending your Bitcoin, and then supplementary tools. So if you're interested in any of those topics, again, bitcoinprivacy.guide. Obviously, we're going to link to that in the show notes. But while we're on it, this topic particularly, we have 4 shout-outs this week. We're just going to read one now, which is, hi, Matt.
All the shout-outs.
We're going to break it up a little bit. Hi, Matt. The BitMEX AML saga has me pretty scared right now. Looks like the government is serious about AML, and on your advice, I put my coins through Wasabi a while back. It's now dawning on me that I've associated a good portion of my coins with a blacklisted address in a rush to take steps to avoid the fascist boot of the government. I think I've actually opened myself up to be a very easy target for them. And even though Samurai is better, it's still easy to see that someone has interacted with their quote-unquote cluster. Obviously, we both do not believe in taint, but then I think about the scene from Blow where the judge mocks Johnny Depp for not believing in borders right before he locks him up. Yeah, oof. So in light of all this, would you mind just dropping a disclaimer on coinjoins before encouraging people to taint their coins in the future? Some noobs like me might not understand they're making their coins worth less and are really putting themselves in danger. Thanks. Love you guys. I don't think you're making your coins worth less, but...
You want to respond to this first, Marty?
Yeah. The question is directed towards you, but I will put my 2 sats in here. Number 1, you don't believe in taint. Taint doesn't exist. I don't think so. Your coins can be put on a blacklist or a whitelist, but it's highly unlikely that it will prevent you from moving your Bitcoins, especially if you have them in personal custody. And then when you do move them, if you do so happen to be on a blacklist and you're not doing anything illegal, you should be fine. And on top of that, they'll have to find you. And then, again, even if your coins are associated with one of these lists, at least up to this point in time, I don't believe there's 2 markets for Bitcoins that have touched certain addresses, at least not to my knowledge. So I don't think you're losing any value of your UTXOs other than the fees you may have paid to CoinJoin.
Okay, so let's unpack this. First of all, absolutely, if you're trying to just trade your coins for fiat, buy some for investments, sell them right away on a KYC exchange, then you shouldn't even mess with CoinJoin. That's a completely different prerogative than me. I have a long-term investment horizon. I'm basically just buying and holding Bitcoin for my grandchildren. This is going to be 10, 20 years, 30 years. No intention of selling them on Coinbase. If you differ from that, then obviously you're in a different situation there. I think we've been pretty clear about it, but point taken, we will be more clear going forward. Second thing is CoinJoin is not illegal in the Western world. We're going to talk about a bunch of things that are bad news here in terms of user privacy, but none of them have said that CoinJoin users are illegal users. That privacy in itself is a crime. No one has said that here. We will unpack them, but most of it is on operators, first of all, operators of custodial mixers, or operators of businesses that are operating custodial wallets without following regulations, which in effect act as a mixer, not CoinJoin. And they're not even targeting the operators of the CoinJoin services yet, of the non-custodial CoinJoin services yet, like Samurai or Wasabi. So not only are they not targeting the users, they're not targeting the operators. The third thing is The only time we've seen CoinJoin flags have been with that Wasabi fixed fee address. They don't have that fixed fee address anymore after we bitched about it for fucking months, and they dragged their feet and finally fucking removed it. I'm pretty sure we haven't seen any flags since they removed it, which is amazing. That's exactly what we said was going to happen. So, and the fourth thing is, if you're not a criminal and your transaction did get flagged with that fixed fee address, what happened was the exchange would ask you more questions. It wasn't like you were going immediately to jail, or so you had to explain yourself that you're a law-abiding citizen. You just believe that privacy is important, because it is. This might not always be the case. Coins with a CoinJoin history are obvious on chain, so they might block them in the future. They haven't yet. So, Freak, if you're worried about it, if you're from the fixed fee address time, maybe run it through Wasabi one more time, or run it through Samurai, so you don't have that fixed fee address just sitting there. Send it back into the KYC exchange you bought it from, and either sell it to them, or you can just leave it in that KYC exchange. Like, if the way I look at it is, if Bitcoin that have a CoinJoin history, like any history, are just non-fungible, can never be used again. Like, how far back are we going? Are we going 8 hops? Are we going 6 hops? Are we going 10 hops? If it goes into Lightning and then comes out of Lightning, is there still CoinJoin history there? Like, how far back do you go? And we see with BitMEX now, they're flagging BitMEX coins with BitMEX history, which is like 250,000, 300,000 coins. So in that kind of situation, if you're not able to buy a sandwich in 10 years, 15 years, through Lightning or whatever, with coins that have CoinJoin history, Bitcoin's in serious shit. Like, we're in a really fucking bad place. Like, if you believe in any kind of mission here, in terms of like free sovereign money, like, we're losing that battle hardcore if that's the situation. So you really just have to decide for yourself: do you want cuck money, or do you want better money? And if you want cuck money, like, that's fine. Just leave your coins on Coinbase, or do one hop out to a ledger. Don't use your own node, and like, that's that, right? And if your government bans Bitcoin, then you just go hand it in. But don't give me this bullshit on Twitter about how, like, you're fighting the man and all this shit, because you're not doing that.
Co-signed. I mean, yeah, like we say many, many times on this podcast, there's a lot of nuance. Know your particular situation, your risk appetite, your time horizon, what you're doing here. It's something I think, again, even though we just said the flame wars really hinder people's confidence in these CoinJoin implementations. If you take a step back and aren't aware of the CoinJoin, or excuse me, the flame wars, and you just have been objectively observing the software over time, I do believe it has gotten better and will continue to get better moving forward. But again, it's a personal decision. Make sure you're educated. Again, go check out Bitcoin Q&A's privacy guide. And no, it's hard to attain privacy on Bitcoin, and it's going to be a journey, and it's going to be hard work. So be aware.
And that's the other thing about the flame wars, right? Is like, if you believe what you see as particularly from Samurai and anti-Wasabi things, is that people have gone to jail for using CoinJoin. No one has gone to jail for using CoinJoin. Certain criminals have gone to jail because they've made mistakes and because their CoinJoin implementations have been flawed. But they went to jail for the crimes they committed that they tried to hide using CoinJoin. They didn't go to jail for using CoinJoin. Could we end up in a situation in the future where you go to jail for using CoinJoin? Maybe. But we could also end up in a future where you go to jail for using Bitcoin, or you go to jail for fucking protesting. Like, that's called an authoritarian society. Like, that's not a great place to fucking be in. I'd hope my grandkids aren't in that place.
I do as well. And you know what? I think we're just going to start off the podcast with news that makes us angry. But before we do that, I got to let you freaks know that this episode is brought to you by great friends at the motherfucking Cash App. I don't know if you heard, but Cash App's parent company Square announced that they're allocating to Bitcoin. We're going to talk about that too. But first, we got to talk about the Cash App. They're helping you stack sats, send sats, receive sats, sell sats, if you so please. On top of that, they're allowing you to DCA into sats. You can buy sats daily, weekly, bi-weekly, set it and forget it. Just have the peace of mind knowing that you are averaging into Bitcoin on a set cadence. We're saying sats because they're allowing you to make sats a standard within the app. There's no more buying fractions of a Bitcoin. You can stack whole sats. It's a more powerful feeling. On top of that, if you're in the stock market and you want to stack slivers of stocks, they have Cash App Investing, which allows you to buy as little as $1 worth of a stock. This is all connected to your bank account, so there's no 4 to 5 day waiting period to start stacking sats and slivers of stonks today. Cash App may even be your bank account. They're offering account number and routing numbers to individual users, so you get your paycheck direct deposit into the app. You can leave the old evil banks behind if you so please. As always, make sure you use the code Stacking Sats when you download the Cash App. That's STACKINGSATS. You're going to get $10, and $10 is going to go to our good friends at Owls Cross. Ooh! We got a friend. What's up, Al? Do you want to come give the owl hoot? Woo! 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 Sound like you have a stuffy throat. Did you download the Cash App yet? Make sure you do. We're going to contribute to your friends, Owls Lacrosse in Chicago, stacking sats. This episode is also brought to you by good friends at Unchained Capital. The legends at Unchained Capital. They're building products for Bitcoiners with a security-first mindset and a collaborative custody mindset. If you want to go from zero to a multi-sig setup in which you hold 2 or 3 keys, they have a white glove concierge service where they're going to teach you everything you need to know about multi-sig. They're going to ask any questions you may have about multi-sig. You're going to have multiple video calls with the team, and then they're going to get Bitcoin into a vault that you set up. So it's a $1,500 package. If you tell them the TFTC sent you. If you tell them that TFTC sent you, you're going to get $50 off that package. The package gets you hardware wallets, again, the video conference calls, and then at the end of the day, when you set up your vault, you're going to get $1,000 sent to your vault. So you go from zero to having $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in a multi-sig setup via the concierge white glove service at Unchained Capital. We're going to link to that specific concierge service in the show notes, but also be aware their incredible blog series. Parker Lewis putting out incredible stuff on Gradually Then Suddenly. They have their OTC desk, which is popping up in more and more states. So if you're a high net worth individual looking to buy big chunks of Bitcoin, Unchained Capital is there for you. And then they're contributing to open source, most importantly, or I don't want to say importantly, and I don't want to scale the importance of their contributions. One of my favorite of their open source contributions is Caravan, which is an open source desktop app that allows you to create these multi-sig quorums without Unchained. So go to www.unchained-capital.com to check everything out. We're going to link specifically to the concierge white glove service in the show notes. So make sure you check them out. And go give them a follow on Twitter at UnchainedCap. All right, we got through that. Do we finish the shout-outs now or just go straight into... Let's finish the shout-outs. Let's bring it back to like a fun vibe. The rest of the shout-outs are fun. And then we'll get into news that makes us angry. So this one is making fun of me. I'm going to do my best. I have not practiced this at all, so here we go. Hi, I'm Marty Bent, habitual mispronouncer of words. Please listen as I read the following list of words. Alias, accede, anathema, camaraderie, colloquialism, demagogue, grandiloquent, maelstrom, nadir, panacea, purell, sanguine, timbre, Worcester, onomatopoeia, ignominious, defibrillator, espouse, purell, and finally penis. From an anonymous freak out there.
Whoever sent that one in, I appreciate you tremendously. That was a good one.
I don't know how I honestly don't know how I did on that. I hope I did well. Hey, Uncle Marty and Matt. Love you both. Thanks for all you do. A few reminders for the freaks. Number 1, spend fiat, stack sats. Number 2, stay humble, shill lightly. Number 3, CoinJoin into your multi-sig wallet. P.S. Sending this shout out via Strike on chain. Shout out to our boy Jack Mahlers and team from our boy Sahil at Sahil. Is it C0? At Sahil, believe C0 on Twitter. Sahil, thank you for the
shout. Dallas.
Nah, that's what I was gonna say. Thank you for the shout out. It was a pleasure meeting you in Dallas. True gentleman. And yeah, Strike now has on-chain capabilities. So if you want to buy and send straight to cold storage that isn't Lightning, well, Lightning isn't cold storage. If you want to send it to your hardware wallet, you can do that now with Strike.
So you can pay any Bitcoin QR code with Strike now.
Yes. Last shout out of the week. It just simply says floor is set, and that's from at Ronin Node, RONINNODE.
He's clearly talking about fees and how we're not going to have 1 sat per byte fees ever again.
Yes, it's set. Thank you, freaks, for the shout outs. We always appreciate them. It's a fun collaborative thing we do. If you're a freak out there who wants to get a shout out on air, go to tftc.io/contribute. Now to the stuff that pisses us off. We're going to start with the Europol report. This is probably like the least bad of the stuff that pisses us off. They just did a internet organized crime threat assessment that they released last week, or actually earlier this week on the 5th.
Well, the interesting part here is they mentioned both sets of spooks.
Yeah, they
as a threat.
They mentioned Wasabi and Samurai by name.
Yeah.
So
and Monero and custodial mixers.
Yes. So they're again the law enforcement agencies around the world are wising up. This honestly, like all the reports that have dropped this week, especially the DOJ's today, which we'll get to later. These people know a lot.
Pages.
These people know a lot more than people suspected. A lot of people thought these agencies were behind the ball and a bit dumb, but it seems like they understand what's going on pretty well. So be aware. Europol, we wanted to point out that they announced the spooks by name, Wasabi and Samurai. Beyond that, we had travel rule rumors swirling around. I've read about the travel rule twice this week, including yesterday when we were made aware of this site. What's the site called?
Travelruleprotocol.org?
Yes, travelruleprotocol.org. This website was brought to our attention, and it's pretty messed up. So this is where like the nuance comes in and trying to lay this out, at least from my point of view. Obviously, I'm not an authority on this matter at all, but here's how I view it. So the travel rule, again, it's a rule that is recommended by the Financial Action Task Force that financial institutions follow, and that dictates that they have to share information about particular users when they move funds from one financial service provider to another. They're now extending that financial service provider definition to virtual asset service providers as well. So these virtual asset service providers, as per the travel rule, are potentially going to be having to share user information with each other as they transact between each other. And it was brought to our attention that there is a group of quote-unquote industry leaders in the virtual asset service provider space, which is basically Bitcoin exchange and financial services. Collaborators that are working to create an API that would immediately comply with the FATF travel rule in a timely manner. And this is very discouraging to see because I wrote about it on Tuesday. Basically, the BitMEX news from last week sort of set alarms off in my head. Like, hey, if they're doing this to BitMEX and they're being this harsh on BitMEX, like the only logical conclusion, if you play out the way the travel rule works and everything that's been going on recently from a regulatory perspective, is it's going to get to a point where these exchanges, if they bend the knee, are going to be in a position where they're not allowed to allow their users to send their UTXOs from the exchange to a personal wallet, because those personal wallets like Electrum, Trezor, Cold Card, whatever non-custodial wallet you may use, aren't collecting or sharing data with these providers. So the logical conclusion that I made in my head personally, maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like it's headed in this direction, is that if those non-custodial wallets cannot collect or share information, they won't be allowed to interact with the financial, the virtual asset service providers that are FATF compliant.
So what's fucked up here? The most fucked up thing here, I think, is like, because let's be honest, these large regulatory compliant exchanges and whatnot, including our sponsor Cash App, like they have banking relationships. They have to comply with these laws, and they have to do their best to comply with them, and they have to work within those regulations. What bothers me the most, and I don't want to insinuate that Square is a part of this organization. What bothers me the most is we don't know who is part of it. There's no transparency there whatsoever. It's happening behind the scenes, behind closed doors, and it's going to get sprung on us. And I'm very concerned. We really do not know anything, and me and Marty are pretty connected. So I can imagine the freaks are really out in the dark. So first off, if you are at the table, consider leaking some information to us. If you go to mattadell.com, there's a bunch of different ways you can reach me that aren't on Twitter or whatnot, and you don't have to dox your identity to me. I prefer if you don't, so I don't even know that information, and just leak the information, and then we'll report on it. Because in this country, we're protected. We're allowed to report on that. The second thing is, as Marty said, from what we have seen, from what has come up, FATFA has certain red flags. Things like using CoinJoin, things like using custodial mixers, things like using unregulated exchanges like BitMEX, but also things like doing self-custody and using a hardware wallet. And what happens is I think at first we're going to see these exchanges basically say to you, when you withdraw, you basically have to agree that you're just sending to yourself. I'm sending to my own wallet. I'm taking full responsibility for that transaction. That's to me. And that way, that kind of absolves them of it. And if you send to another regulated exchange, they share the information. But the ultimate end result here, at the end of the day, whether that's in 2 years or 5 years or 7 years, is a complete ban on self-custody. And I've said this before. When I was first getting into Bitcoin, people didn't think we were going to have KYC on all the on-ramps. Some people were talking about it, but people really took it for granted that we didn't have widespread KYC everywhere. And I think what happens now is people are taking for granted that they can easily self-custody. And I think in the future, that's going to become basically criminalized. And there's going to be a dark period. And there's going to have to be legal fights. And there's going to have to be... It's not going to... No one said it's... I mean, I at least never said this was going to be like an easy thing. Like there will be a fight. And it depends where you live, and it depends on a bunch of different macro things that are also happening outside of Bitcoin. But it's...
Yeah. And you alluded to it earlier. It's like a situation where it's definitely don't hate the player, hate the game. And the game being the fact that the supranational unelected regulatory body and the Financial Action Task Force is setting these guidelines that then are being forced upon these financial institutions. We need to cut this hydra off at we need to cut the hydras. I don't even know how you kill the hydra at the end of the day, but you need to cut it out at its core, which is the Financial Action Task Force. I do not like this task force at all. I don't think they do anything to actually prevent the things they want to prevent, which is trafficking or laundering of money to aid drug traffickers, terrorists. I think they actually hinder the common man more, and the drug dealers and the terrorists actually facilitate money laundering because they're able to pay off some of the people high off within this financial system. So it's definitely a hate the game situation, but also put some onus on the players to stick up for their users. Like, don't bend the knee. Like, there are a bunch of industry players in this working group, but there's also some players outside of the group. And the players in the group, if you're listening to this, I would posit to you, like, don't just fucking roll over and comply with this. Like, what the hell was Bitcoin created for? It was to get around stuff like this. Like these companies that have profited immensely off of the Bitcoin protocol by becoming on and off ramps and service providers are just turning their back on the ethos of the protocol and why it was founded in the first place. Like, don't just roll over and get a dick shoved up your ass because you want to comply. Like, stand up for your fucking users.
Push back.
Yeah, we like push back, and that's why we talk about it, and I write about it a lot. Is the more people are vocal about this, the more political pressure there is to push back on this. And Jeff Stravinsky actually had a good thread. Jake Stravinsky. I'm sorry, Jake. Jake had a great thread on. I don't know why I said Jeff. Jake had a great thread on, this is probably like the logical conclusion, but now the battle goes to the courts and to the regulators to push back. This is why we need to support politicians like Cynthia Lummis, Emmer, and a couple others that are understanding of Bitcoin and the revolution it brings, and support them and support the people on Capitol Hill. Unfortunately, we don't like to go through the state, but if we're able to put some political pressure on these regulatory bodies to not institute these overbearing regulations, like, we should try to use every avenue that we can. And the fight is upon us. It's here.
Look, this is, it's the same idea as why people get frustrated about gun laws. Is these laws, their stated intention is to stop crime, but criminals are unaffected. Criminals are going to keep doing criminal things. It's the law-abiding citizens that have to suffer here, and we're going to be made vulnerable. These kind of laws they're anti-American at their core because, we don't have the liberty of being the most powerful country in the world anymore in terms of technology, and our systems are wide open. We've seen plenty of times where U.S. government systems have been compromised and hacked, where banks have been compromised and hacked, where tech companies have been compromised and hacked. And if we're going to store all of this private information of Americans on our servers and not protect them securely, all you're doing is making a country of vulnerable cucks. And I will not stand for that as a patriot of this country.
Neither will I. I'm right there on the front lines with you. No, like, to add to what Matt said there, these type of regulations are just going to enable the things they're trying to stop that much more. You're going to push hash rate and innovation over the countries that you that's the fucked up thing. It's like, it's these governments fighting with each other, and just they're cutting off their nose to spite their face. All the activity is going to be pushed into the arms of the people that they deem as enemies. And the American people, and frankly Europe gets tossed in with this, England gets tossed in with this, any Western country that follows the U.S. financial hegemony is going to be left in the dust.
The citizens of the world are getting fucked together.
Yeah, it's fucked, man. So now we transition to the framework that the Department of Justice released like an hour before we made the list, and it's an 86-page tome. It's got some good things, it's got some bad things. The way I understand it, the Department of Justice is attempting to create a framework from which to view cryptocurrencies, how they can be used legally and illegally, and where focus should be from a law enforcement perspective. A lot of talk about drugs and money laundering in the report. One silver lining, like shining spot, where I was like, wow, it's actually pretty interesting. It seems like they're not they're okay with things like wasabi and samurai right now. They don't so one of the
86 pages, and they didn't say CoinJoin use was illegal or non-custodial, which is what we mentioned earlier, non-custodial software.
Yeah.
The operators aren't committing a crime. So,
no. So according to FinCEN, this was like one of the blurbs. According to FinCEN, anonymizing service providers and some AEC issuers are money transmitters, whereas an individual or entity that merely provides anonymizing software is not, which is actually like encouraging.
Pretty huge distinction. It's basically the distinction we've been harping on here for years now.
Yeah. So that was interesting. But with that being said, it's really the posturing throughout I didn't read the whole thing word for word. I skimmed it, but the posturing from the Department of Justice seems like they want to bring in regulation to protect people from drug dealers and criminals and terrorists, where, again, like we said, these criminals are going to do this no matter what. And Department of Justice, I've got a few pieces of advice, or maybe something to think on to prevent these crimes without having to curb innovation in the Bitcoin space. Number one, why don't you end the drug war? Right there, you cut off the definition of a criminal. You cut a lot of people out of the definition that would fall under the definition of a criminal right away. The drug war has failed abjectly. It does not work. Give it up. You're creating more criminals. Why don't we turn it to
it's a major criminal funding source too?
Exactly. Yeah, you want to end terrorism and the facilitation of human trafficking. A lot of that's funded by drug wars. I would argue that the Mexican cartels are terrorists. And how do they make their money? They sell drugs. Why are they able to sell drugs? Because they realize that people want drugs, and they're the only people willing to take the risk to provide it to the market. It's a very lucrative risk to take. So end the drug war. You'll reduce the total amount of criminals in the world significantly. Maybe stop indiscriminately bombing, which actually I think the Trump administration hand up outside of Yemen, which just support of Saudi Arabia is basically a proxy for bombing Yemen. But outside of Yemen and during the Trump administration, I think we've done a pretty good job of not bombing indiscriminately in the Middle East. Actually, Trump announced he's pulling troops out of Afghanistan by the end of the year. We need more of that. Less indiscriminate bombing of people in far-off lands that pisses people off and creates terrorists. Why don't we try working on these things before you hinder innovation in the Bitcoin space?
I mean, why don't you start reading your suspicious activity reports for all the criminal activity that's happening in the banking system?
Right? That could help. It's just give peace a chance. Give peace a chance. So we're going to link to the Department of Justice report. Again, combination of all right, I see you there, but also all right, maybe focus on other areas in which you could prevent these quote-unquote crimes before you hinder innovation. Just a thought. If anybody from the Department of Justice is listening, we'd love to have you on, have a conversation about this. Matt's shaking his head now. Staying on, we've got two and a half more topics of news that makes us angry. The HMRC, which is the equivalent of the IRS in England, is ordering Coinbase to hand over customer records. I believe it was for anything over $5,000 or just any purchase.
5,000 pounds.
5,000 pounds. Yeah. Or euros anymore. They Brexited.
They never used euros. They still haven't officially Brexited yet.
No?
No, Chris Arnott posted a funny tweet about it.
I love Chris
It's
Arnott.
The year is 2030. The British economic minister goes over to Brussels to announce an extension of Brexit, and no one remembers why this tradition started in the first place.
So Coinbase sent out an email to its users, essential information about your account. We're writing to let you know about a notice HM Revenue and Customs issued to Coinbase under Paragraph 1, Schedule 23 to the Finance Act of 2011. The notice requires us to report information of your Coinbase account to the HMRC. So it's not even like here in the U.S. where Coinbase was able to put up a fight on behalf of...
They did.
Did they?
It was supposed to be all Coinbase users, and instead it was over 5,000
Oh, yes. Excuse me, I did not.
Which is what happened with Coinbase in the States.
It was
supposed to be all
$20,000.
Coinbase users, but it was over 20,000, yeah.
Yeah. So shout out, give props where props are due. Give proper props where props are due. Coinbase standing up for users at a certain
I have a lot of problems
threshold.
with Coinbase. That's not one of them. They have no choice there.
Yeah. So any of our British freaks out there that are using Coinbase, your tax revenue center.
Well, pay your taxes, freaks, but just remember that...
Yeah, obviously pay your taxes, but
But just remember that it's not just your Coinbase history. Like if you didn't use CoinJoin after you withdrawed from Coinbase, it's all your transaction history that you've ever done is all, and it's going to be stored on some server and securely. So
but
have fun with that.
But these tax authorities should not have this authority. Like, it's whatever happened to innocent. I won't speak for English law, but for the United States, innocent until proven guilty is a thing. Like,
I
you
don't
can't.
know if that's the case in England.
I don't either. That's why I bring it back to the U.S. and the IRS. Like, we're innocent until proven guilty here. By trying to collect that data, you're assuming that people are acting nefariously in the first place.
I don't think that's the case with the IRS.
No,
but I'm not a lawyer.
Any of our lawyers out there? We have many of you that are listening to this podcast.
My whole interaction with the IRS has always been guilty until proven innocent. So
yeah, it's fucked.
Maybe in name only.
We are all tax slaves, getting our money stolen by an incompetent state.
It is what it is.
It is. I must note, a little breaker here. Did not watch the debate last night. I'm very happy. I decided to watch a Bond movie, and all the better for it. After the Bond movie, I went on Twitter, and people were talking about Dumbass Fly. I have no idea why.
I did also see the talk. I saw I did not watch the debate, but I saw the Fly talk. This one I think is really big that no one really is talking about. And this is that Chain Analysis has announced that anyone who uses their products now, if a customer deposits a UTXO that has history of BitMEX, then it gets flagged with the high risk warning. And this is going to go back retroactively as well. So in their systems, historically, anyone who has had UTXOs in the past that have been deposited with BitMEX history are going to get flagged as well. And this just goes, I think there's plenty of traders who would like happily throw CoinJoin users under the bus and just like, fuck you. But at any point, these chain surveillance companies and their cronies that they work with, and lobbyists and regulators can just decide. Like they can decide 300,000 Bitcoin, 400,000 Bitcoin are high risk, and if that becomes the status quo, then pretty much all Bitcoin are vulnerable to it. It's like, are we just gonna? You're just supposed to buy Bitcoin and just keep it in a custodian that's regulated for the rest of eternity because you can never accept Bitcoin or spend Bitcoin without doing like massive chain analysis till the ends of time to make sure that you can spend your Bitcoin in the future. It's like the end result there. And it's untenable. We can't have that.
It's untenable. Maybe it gets to the point where doing chain analysis gets too expensive for these companies. It's too burdensome to even do it, so they don't do it in the first place. We can only hope that we get to that point. That's why it's important to CoinJoin your coins while you still can. It aids in busting those heuristics that makes that process more tedious, more expensive, and more drawn out, which will disincentivize the act in the first place in the future.
But as the freak said earlier, disclosure, if you don't want to take any risk whatsoever, then, don't do that.
Yes, it is a risk that you will be taking, but it's a risk that will pay off in a more robust Bitcoin network that is less susceptible from these chain analysis attacks. Chain surveillance attacks, as we like to talk to them. All right, talk to them. We don't talk to these attacks. They're not people. They're inanimate implementations of somebody else. All right, on to good news. Square bought $50 million worth of Bitcoin yesterday. I believe it was like something like 4,079 Bitcoin was the amount they were able to acquire. So they've released that news today. And most importantly, they've released a white paper that open sourced their process. They explained why they added Bitcoin to their balance sheet, how they executed the trades, how they're custodying their Bitcoin. They're self-custodying. They are a custodian, but they've built their own cold storage implementation called Sub-Zero, and they're using that. They're putting skin in the game with their own treasury holdings. They're explaining insurance. They basically have crime insurance on their holdings and how they're accounting for the Bitcoin on their balance sheet as well. And I just thought this was very interesting, and it's a good topic to bring up and circle back on what we were talking about earlier about players pushing back. And that's why, again, I'm still very comfortable having Cash App as a sponsor of this podcast. It's because I believe that Square's actions as they have offered Bitcoin services for the last 3 years are really principled and align with why I'm at Bitcoin.
Come on, Jack.
It started with Cash App, allowing people to get access to Bitcoin very easily in their app. I started Square Crypto to give back to the open source community, which is building the non-custodial products, particularly BTC Pay Server and the Lightning Development Kit and the Bitcoin Development Kit that will build non-custodial products that allow Bitcoiners to secure their Bitcoins and use it more easily. And then they have the open patent thing, and now this news, getting skin in the game, putting their money where their mouth is, getting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, open sourcing their process, and potentially making it easier for other publicly traded companies to get Bitcoin on their balance sheets as well. I just really like what I'm seeing out of it. And second publicly traded company to officially hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet.
Come on, Jack. Only $50 million. What is this, fucking pleb shit?
People are giving a bunch of shit for that. They could
I mean, I kid. I think even though it's a way less amount than MicroStrategy, I think it's a bigger deal than MicroStrategy, because Square is like a massive company.
Yeah.
There's like a lot more due diligence and stuff had to be done. While MicroStrategy is a smaller, closely held company that really, at the end of the day, like Michael Saylor got to kind of do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a bigger deal, and I agree with you. I think that Jack is fighting the good fight. Do not agree with all of his politics, but you don't have to agree with everyone.
No.
You know, back in the day, you used to not discuss politics at the dinner table. Sometimes I wish we went back to that.
Yeah. Don't always agree with what's going on at Twitter, but we're going to focus on Square. Somebody emailed me today saying we don't talk about the withdrawal limits enough. We don't criticize Cash App. We have criticized the withdrawal limits on this podcast, and I'll do it again right now. They're too low, especially if the Bitcoin price goes up during this bull market. They're going to need to be raised. With that being said,
you should always withdraw. Don't keep your money on Cash App, and withdraw to CoinJoin.
yeah.
But know the risks.
Know the risk, and as it pertains to the withdrawal limits, I don't think the Cash App team likes them either, and I think Jack Dorsey alluded to that when I recorded with him last year. People ran with he's buying $10,000 a week, and I think he was actually hinting at the fact that he doesn't like the limits in both directions, whether buying or moving off the app.
Yeah, but if you just want cuck money, then you could just leave it on the app.
Yeah, enjoy your cuck money, you cuck. Software updates. We're in the software updates section of the list already. We're almost an hour in. That flew by. Time flies when you're mad at the news.
It's been such a weird week for me, man.
Right? A lot of mixed feelings. I think it's overall bullish, though. Again, make people more aware of this stuff. Be vocal. People really discount the power of actually voicing your opinion, getting out to the public, and that's the beauty of Twitter. Even though I don't always agree with what Twitter does, if you have good ideas out there and you're able to amplify it, they do catch on sometimes. I believe the newsletter and this podcast are an example of that. I just fucking hit record and put my voice out there, and you freaks seem to like it, and more people are picking it up. And I don't know if it's having an impact. It might be. I think definitely stir some conversations, and that's the least you can do if you want to help push back against this. Just speak up against it. Not really a software update, but a summary of a potential software update. The SureBits team has a very thorough Schnorr summary. It's a series. So shout out to Chris Stewart, Nadav Cohen. Nadav is the author of the series, and our good friend Ben, the car man. The SureBits team doing big things for DLCs, they're building their own Bitcoin implementation, for a bunch of things. So go check that out. We're going to link to that. If you want to learn more about Schnorr, it's a very thorough summary in a bunch of different blog posts. Something just happened in my backyard. I don't know what's going on.
An owl just fell out of the sky.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's an omen. All right, you run through the software updates. I'm like out of breath here.
Yeah? Okay, cool. This is fun. Spectre v0.8.1 has been released. We're Spectre maximalists over here. It's the easiest way to use your full node with your hardware wallet, especially in a multi-sig situation, but even single sig. We have Bitcoin Wallet Tracker V0.1.5, which is an easy plugin that lets you use Electrum with your full node. Blockstream Green Desktop V0.0.4, which is mostly bug fixes. It'd be nice if they added full node support. Coin Control. Sparrow V0.9.5. Not sure what the updates are there. Blue Wallet V5.6.1. This one's pretty massive. It adds PayJoin support, which is compatible with BTC Pay server, so you can pay a BTC Pay server invoice, just like if you use our BTC Pay server instance on tftc.io/contribute. If you do it with a PayJoin, basically our store, it contributes an input to the transaction, which defeats the common input ownership heuristic, which is that anything on the input side is owned by the same person. It basically clusters our wallet with your wallet, so it looks like our wallets are the same wallet, and it also helps mask the amount being paid. So that's a pretty big improvement. There is a common misconception that pay joining with yourself is a benefit. There might be some tiny slight benefit, but really because the heuristic is basically clustering the two wallets together, if you cluster your own wallets, you're not really, there's nothing really that you're accomplishing there. So great to see that. I know they're about to release multisig. I don't think it's out yet. It's just being teased on the interwebs. BTC Pay Server V1.0.5.7 has been released. Fully noted V0.1.90 has been released. I've been meaning to reach out to Fontaine, but I know he listens to the pod, so I'll just reach out to him here. I don't see the update on the GitHub repo, so I'm curious about that. But it's an iPhone app, so you can't download an APK anyway. But he has a bunch of bug fixes there. What else do we have? Oh, Ledger Live has added coin control and full node support, which is fucking massive. We've been teasing that for a while now. I know we have a bunch of Ledger guys that listen to the podcast. Very happy to see this. This is a massive privacy improvement. This is the kind of thing we want to see. We want to see, the ideal situation is that every Bitcoin wallet should be a privacy wallet. Like, they should all take privacy best practices into account. They should all have advanced features that allow a power user to use them more privately. Two big ones there are coin control and full node support. So it's really big to see that. They also said labeling's coming, which I'm pretty excited about. And people don't discuss it enough. Like on Bitcoin Twitter land, like no one talks about Ledger Live, but it's a very common wallet. A lot of people are using Ledger Live, so it's really good to see. Now, Hexa Wallet V1.2.0 has been released. On this podcast, I've never talked about it, but I am a paid advisor for them. I've disclosed it on Twitter. It's also on my website, mattodell.com. So he's got a nice full disclosure there. I've been advising them, trying to help them build the best wallet they can build. It should not be considered an endorsement in any kind of way. They have given me 0.75% equity. I don't think anyone actually discloses the amount of equity they get, so I'm trying to be a trailblazer there. And you can see that all on mattodell.com. But anyway, this feature that got dropped today is a feature that I've been very bullish about and that I've been trying to get them to add. And I would like to see other, wallets offer something similar too, so it could be distributed more. But it's basically an easy way to accept donations. And what we've seen is like BTC Pay, super bullish on BTC Pay. I'm wearing the hat. You can host it yourself, accept donations, completely sovereign, with your own full node. That's pretty difficult for people. And I think what you need is we see these people get deplatformed. They get deplatformed from like Patreon or something like that. And we say to them like, oh, you can take Bitcoin instead. And it's not easy for them. It's a very complicated process. With this new feature, they can basically in 5 minutes, any schmuck can just download the app and just immediately start accepting Bitcoin donations. Non-custodial. Right now it's on-chain only because they don't want to do Lightning custodial. So it's on-chain only. And you are trusting them with your privacy, and you're trusting them to actually deliver the address. And if you want to level up from there, then you use BTC Pay Server, and you don't have to do that. But I think it's important that we have this this middle ground where people can accept donations in Bitcoin and not reuse the same address over and over again. And it gives you this nice little interface. It shows when people pay, and if they pay with Hexa, you can actually add a message to it as well that shows up on the little splash page.
Yeah, I was very impressed by the demo that you posted today. Setting that up.
I got really excited, so I just immediately posted.
That was pretty dope, sleek. Shout out to the Hexa team. I met them for the first time last year at BitBlock Boom. And they've been grinding ever since. Where the wallet is today compared to where it was when I first met the team last year is leap and bounds ahead of what it was. So shout out to the Hexa team. Thank you for advising with some good ideas. It seems like they're implementing them, and thank you for disclosing the equity.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I still think it's weird. I mean, look, the way I look at it is I talk to so many different projects and so many different teams in the space all the time. Some of them give me equity, and as long as I fully disclose it, I think that's important. I will drop them if they ever added a shitcoin or behaved unethically. But I do think, and I want people to be clear here, it's definitely still a beta product. Don't store large amounts, especially on a phone wallet. I think like the best, I think number one rule of thumb is you should be using multiple wallets, but I really like the Cold Card plus Spectre plus Bitcoin Core setup, and I think you can level that up with multi-sig. And as I said on this podcast, we're still a little bit off from that, so don't go crazy. Play around with it and learn. But we're very, very close to that reality. For the Hexa team, love them. They're great. Almost fully Indian team, which I don't think we see a lot of. That community is not as big as you'd expect it to be. At least, I mean, they're are they the biggest country in the world? Are they bigger than China?
I believe they're number 2 behind China.
But they're all English speaking.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Which is it's pretty amazing. So I think it's going to be a massive market for Bitcoin, and I think mobile wallets. Most people's only computer is their phone. So if we could have, I want to see more mobile apps that try and make best practices as easy as possible. So like the dream is to have an app that both like the Peter McCormicks of the world and then the us's of the world can use and be happy with, right? And if we can scale up for those different users, that would be the dream.
The UX improves. And actually, China is number 1 in world population, but India is way closer than I thought. China, according to Google, take this with a grain, or census.gov, currently has 1,394,015,977 people living within its borders, or that are Chinese citizens is probably the better way to phrase that. India is not too far behind, only 68 or 67 million people less at 1,326,093,247 Indian citizens. I always thought China had 2 billion. They're very close. If you had important on your bingo card this week, you've hit it twice already, so make sure you get that square filled.
What, have I been saying important?
That was the 3rd time. I've heard 2.
Needless to say, they don't give me equity for my pronunciations.
Me neither. I actually don't have equity in anything. I'm not miners. Not a Great American Mining. Yes, there. I mean, but I work for them. I'm not advising.
Yeah, fair.
I'm up front.
I mean, I talk to these. If someone's gonna put me as an advisor, I'm gonna be up in your grill all the time, and I'm probably a pretty fucking annoying advisor.
That's what you want.
I told them I wanted Tor as a default. They're like, "Fuck you, Matt. What? How are we supposed to do that performance wise?" I was like, "I don't know. Figure it out."
Speaking of performance, it'll be interesting to see if the 2500 S19 Pros that Riot Blockchain bought and have had delivered will perform. They
haven't delivered yet, right?
No, they haven't delivered.
Yeah, they're pre-orders.
Yes, they should be. They should be Yes, I was wrong. They're scheduled to be delivered in mid 2021. So Riot announced, again, Riot's a publicly traded company, so I think they have to announce stuff like this, or at least it's public information that anybody can find. They announced Tuesday that they paid $6.1 million for, again, 2,500 S19 Pros. This should add about 2.3 exahashes to the Bitcoin network. The total amount of hash rate that Riot will contribute to the Bitcoin network at that point will be 2.3 exahash per second, which, to put that in context for you freaks, that's about 2/3 the amount of hash rate that is contributed to the slush pool. So it's a pretty significant mining operation there. They'll have more than 1% of the overall hash rate, I believe, if it was factored in today. Obviously, there'll be more people plugging in miners, so you have to take that into consideration. But Riot, shout out to expanding your business. I know they've had a tumultuous past, but I've talked to the board at Riot in the past, and I think they're actually building like a pretty legitimate mining business here in the United States. But again, with that being said, if you freaks listen to my episode with Leo Zhang that dropped on Tuesday, we go into what's going on at Bitmain and the unreliability of the hardware they've been shipping. So here's to hoping they can right the ship with the S19 Pro for Riot's sake. I actually really don't have many good things to say about Bitmain, but you never want to see somebody buy something and it not work for them. So hopefully the shipment of Bitmain miners doesn't have a high failure rate like a lot of recent shipments have had. Matt's just staring out the window.
No, I mean, Riot was like kind of scammy in the beginning, but it seems like they're trying to right their ship. I know Pierre has joined them as an advisor.
Yes.
And he's got a good head on his shoulders. So hopefully they don't get completely fucked here. But, you know, historically, pre-ordering miners, especially from Bitmain, has been a questionable idea.
Yeah.
To say the least.
We shall see. And again, I want to preface it, like, I've spoken to a couple of the board members at Riot. They are trying to right the ship. It was a little weird that they transitioned from like a medical med tech investment company to a Bitcoin. They were like
they own it, right?
Yeah, they do. Yes, they do own it. You have to in that regard. But yeah, trying to right the ship, try to build a legitimate mining business here in the United States, and we shall see what happens. What I'm most interested to see is if Bitmain delivers on time, on top of the failure rate of that batch. Next year, this is pretty big development. The second time we've had some of the stolen coins from the BitMEX hack. What was that, 2016 move this year? 26 million. Bitfinex, yeah, that was stolen. Has moved today. Whale alerts alerted the market to that. I believe it was something like 8 transactions.
Yeah, the whale alert caught it.
Yeah, that's what I said, right?
Maybe. This was the 2016 hack? Yeah.
Yeah, they got around 120,000 Bitcoin, which is insane. Bitfinex hot wallet got hacked, if I remember correctly. So what are these, like, so they're just moving them into wallets? So you think they're coin joining these? If you're moving that much money to coin join, that's probably not the best way. Bitfinex hacker, you probably want to do it in smaller chunks so you don't pollute your...
Yeah, I don't really know what the hell's going on here. I mean, they haven't moved it to exchanges or anything.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just testing the waters, seeing what's up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. If you freaks that weren't around, that was pretty big news. That made the price dump pretty significantly.
I just realized, that was like a massive, that was like almost all of their coin. Like it was like 130,000 coins or something ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah. And
but it was less, it was 2016, so we weren't even over $1,000 yet.
No. Yeah. So yeah, that saga. I forget how they. Oh yeah, that's when the Bitfinex token. That's what spurred Tether, right? Spurred Tether too, right?
That's one thing that we didn't mention last week with the whole BitMEX thing. Is one thing BitMEX does have going for it is it's pretty amazing that Tether and Bitfinex has been able to stand up to U.S. government regulators this whole time, and BitMEX is almost more insulated because they have zero ties to banking system. And on that note, we did miss one topic here, is that BitMEX has been changed. They changed their leadership today, presumably to help fight these charges from the CFTC better. Their founders stepped down and new people stepped up to run the day to day.
Yes. Yeah. So Arthur Hayes and Samuel Reed. Arthur, the CEO, Samuel, the CTO, stepped down. Vivian Ku, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. It's not even Vivian, it's Vivian. Again, Marty's pronunciations here. How would you pronounce that? Vivian? Vivian? Maybe it is Vivian. Vivian Ku, who was the chief operating officer at 100X Group, which is one of their subsidiaries, is becoming interim CEO. She joined. Yeah, it's Vivian. She joined the company in March 2019, and she was the managing director in Asia Pacific compliance for Goldman Sachs. So she's got a pretty robust resume there. Ben Radcliffe is enhancing his responsibility for client relationship handling and oversight of financial products. He joined earlier this year. He's got a 20-year background with trading technology at Deutsche Bank, UBS, and Tower Research Capital. So we have a bit of a reshuffling there. Again, I'm a fan of BitMEX and the product they built and the fact that they stayed true to Bitcoin's ethos, and were very good stewards, particularly of how they interacted with the chain, how they interacted with their customers up until the U.S. government sort of reached in, and they provide incredible technical content, incredible commentary, and they also support developers in the Bitcoin ecosystem with grants. So I'm a fan of BitMEX. I hope they get through this not unscathed. Obviously, that doesn't seem like that's going to happen, but with the least amount of damage is possible.
Yeah, it should be interesting to watch it all play out.
Yeah. Speaking of sponsorships, this is pretty cool. I didn't see this until you posted it in the last Mempool. Space sponsorships. What's going on here?
So this is fun. We love Mempool.space here. I use it pretty much every day. It allows you to view a picture of their mempool. Everyone has their own mempool, but an idea of what the fees are in a very easy to understand way. Our good friend Wiz is one of the maintainers. We've had him on the pod. If you haven't listened to that episode, you should go back and listen to it. That was actually mostly focused on BISC, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But we did talk about Mempool a little bit. Anyway, they added this new sponsor ability where you could, if you donate 0.01 Bitcoin, oh my God, if you donated 1 million sats,
blasphemy.
Shame. I brought shame on my family. If you donate 1 million sats, then you could be displayed as a sponsor on the page. And I think that's like a cool way of supporting open source projects. Like, it'd be cool if all of our favorite Bitcoin open source projects offer this, and it's completely automated. You just click to become a sponsor at mempool.space/about. You put in your Twitter handle if you want to be credited for it. Otherwise, you don't have to be. And once you pay, it just pops your picture up there.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right now.
Cool little social reward mechanism. And right now we have eight sponsors already up there. Marty's about to be
make it 9.
About to be the 9th.
Let me see.
So I think that's pretty cool. I'd like to see more doing that. We have, the idea of like the social feedback that you're displayed usually brings in more donations. So the Mempool.space is a completely open source project. You can actually run it on your own node, which I do as well, which is awesome. You can connect to it through Tor, which is a very nice benefit for privacy. But because it's open source, you can put in that sponsorship mechanism that they have into your project as well. So that's, I think, a really cool idea.
Boom, I'm up there.
Are you up there?
Yeah, there we go.
There he is.
Boss.
That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that's the beauty of Bitcoin. That happened, when did I start that transaction? Or going into my mobile wallet. like less than
Yeah, I
45
like that
seconds ago.
idea.
I'm on a fucking
I wonder
website.
if they remove you if you double spend because they add you.
That's a good point. I'm not going to double spend on you guys, though. Thank you for your contribution.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Yeah, I said we were done with news that makes us angry, but non-Bitcoin news, related news that makes us angry. Classrooms are starting to surveil their students under the guise they're going to fight COVID. So a story came out in themarkup.org. Haven't heard of this till you brought it up. It's pretty infuriating.
The Tor Twitter account brought it up, and that's how I saw it.
Yeah. So there's a school district in Georgia with 24 schools that reopened its classrooms, and it included a new surveillance technology equipped with thermal imaging, and the cameras are made by Hikvision, which is a Chinese provider of facial recognition tools and other surveillance equipment. So you have school districts in America using the coronavirus as an excuse to buy surveillance technology to surveil your children, to check their thermal heat images and watch them as they go around being children and trying to hinder their ability to do that. It's pretty fucked.
Yeah, this is why, like, it's happening all around us. We've never been in this situation before, this kind of Orwellian surveillance society. And it's through this partnership. It's this corporate surveillance partnership with government surveillance. And the problem is on the corporate side, there's even less protections than on the government side. And it's just being leveraged by tons of bad actors. And I'm not willing to stand by. Like, we can't let this happen. Like, I'm not cool with this mentality that some Bitcoiners have, where like or just people in general have, where it is what it is. Privacy is dead and we're fucked. You know, like that. I can't live that way. Like that's not the way I plan to live my life. And we need to push back here, because if we don't push back, who the fuck is going to push back?
Yeah. And don't fucking partner with a Chinese surveillance company. It's definitely sending that data back to the CCP. Like, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding me?
And anyone else who hacks their system.
Yes. And think about, you're sending, again, that's public school system. You're sending you're sending your children to prison, basically. Public school system in America is pretty fucking terrible these days. And not only is it a metaphorical jail that jails your mind and the exploration of creativity while you're a young child, but it's now becoming more of an actual prison with surveillance that will separate your children if they have a fever and label them as outcast that need to be quarantined. We found a cure to COVID. Trump said it today. He called it a cure. We can't be afraid of this shit anymore.
What was the cure that he found?
The medicine he took, whatever.
I suppose he was like, he took like $2 million worth of medication.
Really? Interesting.
Because he like took some like experimental synthetic antibodies or something.
What a saga that was. So that started what? Late Thursday night and a Friday morning after we recorded last week, and people thought he was going to die. And he was out in like 3 days. He went on the White House balcony and took his mask off, and all the blue check marks on Twitter freaked the fuck out. I'm so tired of this shit. Noise is right. I did like the message. Like, you can't be afraid of this anymore. Like, you can't live your life in fear from this disease. Like,
I mean, I think that's in general. Like, you shouldn't live your life in fear. Like, people are soft.
Dude, I was in.
It's not just that. That's the thing. That's what. Bitcoiners are too cocky about so much shit. Like, we watched the whole economy get shut down and no one do shit globally. You know, its surveillance measures get increased, like, and everyone just goes along with it. So this idea that significant damage can't be done to Bitcoin and Bitcoiners by governments around the world is, a false sense of security. Like, we see how easily and quickly this shit can change.
Yeah. And again, what is the simplest thing you can do to push back against this? Speak up. Don't sit there complacently, sitting there silent, is complicitly allowing this stuff to happen. Think of the future you want for your children, your grandchildren, yourself. God, stop being a cock. And if you're listening to this podcast, I bet you're part of the code. You're people who speak up. Advise others to speak up. It's crazy, man. Like, I was in Philly last weekend in one particular neighborhood, and everybody was wearing masks walking outside. It was like a beautiful fall day, and people were like, myself and my wife weren't wearing masks. We were getting like scowled at. It was like, what the people are completely brainwashed. Like,
That's what I'm saying. You think like just using Bitcoin won't be a suspicious activity?
speak up, freaks. You got anything else, Matt?
Yeah, there was a little bit of noise there, but talking about some Signal, our fellow Bitcoin podcasters had there was two podcasts that I'd like to point out. Stefan had Godfrey Bloom on.
What a legend.
Yeah, who honestly, like, that guy, like, it just sounded like a boomer version of me. It was like pretty crazy to hear, you know, for someone to say like we've never been in this situation before, and that like politicians have no idea what they're doing or whatever, but being of his age instead of our age.
And being a
just
politician,
rather refreshing,
right? Like,
yeah. Oh, is he ex-politician?
Well, yeah, like he's like famous amongst Bitcoiners outside of his announcement that he's getting into Bitcoin last week, because like he's
that video.
Yeah, he's the video like in European Parliament,
right?
Yeah, like just.
Well, I didn't put two and two together.
Yeah.
Okay. No wonder.
So he's been making around.
Anyway, that's
for
a
years.
great episode. Everyone should go listen to that. Stefan Livera. And then our boy Gladstein was on What Bitcoin Did with Peter McCormick. And he was talking about how Bitcoin is helping protesters in Belarus. And I think it's just really important for people to realize, Bitcoin is helpful. Like, one of the major benefits of improving Bitcoin privacy guarantees is that it's helpful to people in need, right? Which is something we talk about so much in the Bitcoin world, and we have to be very careful, because these surveillance tools, these things we normalize, they end up getting abused by authoritarians and dictators. In this case, Lukashenko, and if we just stand by, then these authoritarians are going to come in and they just cut off their detractors from the financial system. They track all of their purchases. It's like amazingly intimate, the things you can tell about a person if you know all of their financial transactions. And it's super imperative for freedom that we push back on this shit.
I agree. And with that being said, you bringing up Belarus sparked the fact that I guess it's a full-blown war now between Armenia and Azerbaijan is going on. I'm going to raise my hand here, admittedly a bit of an ignorant American with this situation. I just know it's pretty hairy. Seems like you have stronger nations backing. I think Turkey's backing Azerbaijan to an extent. It seems to be a proxy war for some minerals, and it's just never fun when wars break out. So any Armenian or Azerbaijani, Azeri, I believe is the correct term there, freaks out there, I feel for you if you're caught in the middle of this.
Yeah, I think Turkey is backing Azerbaijan, and Russia's backing Armenia.
Iraq?
Russia,
yeah, makes sense. I mean,
but I also will raise my hand. I'm not, that well versed on it. I will say one thing: it is sad and alarming how none of this is really getting spoken about.
Yeah. So even though we're ignorant on this subject, I just thought it's important to bring up that it is going on, and I actually am going to make an effort to learn more about it over the weekend.
My basic understanding here is that the Azeris, Azerbaijan is the aggressor here, and they appear to be objectively in the wrong. But
yes,
like I said, I have not been paying attention.
That's the way I understand it as well. It seems to be over some energy sources, which is A shame.
One interesting thing is how like Twitter is being leveraged and how social media is being leveraged. Like the official Azerbaijan and Armenia accounts are like tweeting out like kill shot videos of like taking out tanks and stuff like live.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before, or very little of from the official government accounts. It's one thing if like you know like the Syrian civil war was happening, we had all the Reddits, you know, where they were categorizing and stuff, but to actually see it from the official Twitter accounts in real time is pretty crazy.
Surreal, right? Welcome to the digital age, freaks. That was a good rip. Mixture of good and bad news. I think important topics were covered. Important nuance was discussed. When are you coming back from your travels?
Are we just we just agree with all the freaks that are just gonna bend the knee, send all of our Bitcoin to KYC exchanges and just custody it with them and just call it quits, you know? It was a good run.
You know what? Pack it up. We're done here.
It was a nice try.
Yeah.
But we failed.
Yeah, humanity's just doomed for a digital panopticon for the rest of the time. All your transactions traced, tracked, immediately taxed, prohibited from being sent. Enjoy it.
Ask your local politician for permission before you buy anything or travel anywhere.
Yeah.
Have a kid.
You know what the pods...
Or you send the kid to school.
The pods aren't that bad, man. Neither are the bugs. I hear they taste like chicken.
Love your pod. Love your bugs. Love your chip. The chip is there for your protection. But to answer your question, I do need to go back home. I'm going to move my stuff into storage, and then I'm going to hit the road again.
Ooh.
So,
Ooh.
But I got a nice new travel mic. So we'll be good. We'll have nice audio quality, and it's really fucking it doesn't go. We don't state it enough. It's really fucking cool that all we need is a laptop and a mic, and we can broadcast to the entire world on an open platform, this RSS feed podcast system, you know, where like anyone can listen on any app they want or no app. They can just listen in a browser. Like that's really fucking cool and powerful. And I love all you freaks.
So that's a benefit of the digital age. Fight for this open. Maybe one day, if we don't fight for this stuff, Matt and I will not be allowed to communicate with each other.
We'll only be able to do Spotify exclusive censored podcasts where we talk about Ripple and Libra and how they're the future of banking.
Yes, you heard it here first. Libra and Ripple going to revolutionize the world. Enjoy your weekend, freaks. Peace and love.